This is New Time on Silkway TV channel. We introduce you with the most visible news and important events that happened throughout this week in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. More details on politics, economy, social and cultural life with opinions from the most recognizable experts of Kazakhstan and world. I'm Dauren Sagulov, and this is what you'll see today. Global leaders gather in Kazakhstan for the Astana International Forum. 5,000 delegates, big ideas, key statements and exclusive interviews straight from the year's most important forum. Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, paid an official visit to Kazakhstan. What was discussed at the Accorda and Central Asia-Italy Summit? Asia is becoming driving force in global politics and economy, says Kishore Mahbubani, former president of the UN Security Council. More in our exclusive interview. Kazakhstan places high priority on strengthening relations with African nations. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev stated during the official visit of President of Rwanda to Kazakhstan this week. The head of state noted that since President Kagame last visit in 2015, both countries have made significant progress in their bilateral relations. He emphasized that Africa's international influence continues to grow with each passing year. Following an official welcoming ceremony, the two delegations held extended talks. As a result, the parties discussed interparliamentary diplomacy and agreed to establish joint working groups in transport, logistics and trade. They also reached an agreement on the supply of critical materials to Rwanda, including beryllium. President Tokayev expressed confidence that these initiatives will help stimulate trade and economic cooperation between the nations.
During the talks, we discussed opportunities for creating international transport corridors and the current state of food security. We explored ways to deliver Kazakh agricultural products to the African continent. Our countries have accumulated significant experience in advanced technologies, artificial intelligence and space. We reached an agreement to implement joint projects in digitalization and cybersecurity.
President Tokayev noted that Kazakhstan and Rwanda share a strong interest in developing green energy and promoting the sustainable use of natural resources. In this regard, both countries plan to implement joint projects aimed at boosting trade turnover and providing a new stimulus for investment cooperation. For his part, President Paul Kagame also praised the outcomes of the visit and the bilateral talks.
The President and I had very productive discussions. Our two countries are good friends and partners, and we want to build on this strong foundation to further deepen our partnership. As you have witnessed with the signing of the agreements, we intend to explore more opportunities for collaboration.
The Astana International Forum took place in Kazakhstan's capital, gathering over 5,000 delegates, including heads of state, prominent politicians, diplomats and representatives from leading international organizations. Over several days, they discussed pressing global challenges, emphasizing the vital theme of unity for the future of global peace. The forum showcased Kazakhstan's growing role as a key platform for international dialogue and cooperation. My colleague will continue the coverage.
Astana International Forum has become a key event for Kazakhstan to conduct dialogue between global south and north. There has been dozens of officials, leaders and experts discussing new proposals and new mechanisms for new global order. The motto of this forum this year around is to connect the minds and shape the future. Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev took the stage at the forum with a sobering message. The world is grappling with unprecedented challenges, and conflict remains at the heart of them. He pointed to staggering numbers: 52 countries affected by armed violence just last year, with the global economic toll reaching $19 trillion. That's nearly 13.5% of the world's GDP lost to unrest and instability.
We must also focus on even more challenging perspective: the growing strain between nuclear-armed states. Today, 9 states possess a combined arsenal of over 13,000 nuclear weapons. Experts warned that the risk of use is increasing, whether by miscalculation, accident, or escalation. The consequences of a single detonation would become disastrous. Scientists estimate that beyond the immediate destruction, it could trigger global climate disaster and destroy harvests.
However, according to the president of Kazakhstan, threats to global security are not limited to geopolitics. Protectionism and trade wars are also on the rise. That's why he emphasized it's crucial to enhance the effectiveness of the United Nations. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev reaffirmed Kazakhstan's support for expanding the Security Council, as the country views today's turbulent world through the lens of constructive engagement, and its foreign policy is grounded in the principles of dialogue over division and respect for sovereign rights.
We continue to deepen our capabilities in key sectors, from digital technologies and artificial intelligence to clean energy and value-added manufacturing. We are making significant progress in digital transformation, reflecting our desire to become IT hub in Eurasia. We place emphasis on artificial intelligence, and the goal is to become an academic and innovation hub with a number of foreign university branches and research and development partnerships.
President Tokayev made it clear sustainable development is impossible without confronting the climate crisis. Central Asia, he said, is among the world's most vulnerable regions, with temperatures rising at twice the global average. That's why Kazakhstan is pushing a pragmatic, coordinated climate agenda across the region. But progress, he stressed, depends on joint efforts. To support that, a new UN Regional Center for Sustainable Development Goals will open in Almaty, offering technical expertise and coordinating international action for Central Asia and Afghanistan. And next year, the country will host a regional environmental summit in partnership with the United Nations. Another priority is transforming the global food system to meet the climate challenges, as emphasized by the UN's chief economist for food and agriculture, Maxima Torreira. The need for sustainable agriculture, digital innovation, and expanded logistics to boost productivity and reach is mandatory, and with its resources and potential, Kazakhstan could emerge as a global food supplier.
The challenge right now is weather, of course, and changes in weather, and how we can bring varieties that are resistant to the extreme climate conditions, especially the cold here. I think it's a great opportunity to bring the region and international players to discuss about topics which are so important, especially on water, which we're going to focus in a session, because water is an essential element. It will be one of the major challenges that we will face in the future.
Strength, experts say, lies not in division but in open and honest dialogue. And the Astana International Forum has become a case in point, a platform where bold ideas emerge and new pathways toward lasting solutions take shape. Marjan Samigulina, New Time.
At a time when geopolitical tensions are reshaping the global order, from the war in Ukraine to crisis in the Middle East, diplomacy and dialogue have never been more urgent. On the sidelines of the Astana International Forum, my colleague Baljan Samigulina sat down in our mobile studio with Christoph Heusgen, ex-chairman of the Munich Security Conference and former chief foreign policy advisor to German Chancellor Angela Merkel. In the conversation, Heusgen reflected on the purpose of global forums like Astana and Munich, the alarming rise in defense spending, and why restoring respect for international law must remain central to resolving today's conflicts. So, what does Christoph Heusgen really think about the world's response to Gaza and Ukraine? And how does he see the Global South shaping the next phase of global security? To find out, watch fragment of interview right now.
So, Mr. Heusgen, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to Kazakhstan. Now we are at the Astana International Forum. How would you highlight the significance of this kind of events in this global security agenda amid these global tensions, please?
Well, we do with the Munich Security Conference something similar as you do here with the Astana International Forum,
right.
Bringing people together, seeing to it that the many conflicts that we have are being resolved. The problem is, and we have to be honest about this, that these last years we have not really seen a decrease in conflicts. We actually have the largest number of displaced persons. We have a number of conflicts. We have the conflicts going on in the Middle East, in Ukraine, Russia.
Right.
We have today the president of Rwanda here and their conflict with their neighbor DRC. And there are so many conflicts on the world, so there's even more need to talk. But the talk alone is not enough. We have to really find solutions, find compromise, so that we can make progress.
And now we see all around the world the trend of increasing the budget for the defense, and also Europe is increasing it. How would you describe this, and what threats do you think it can impose that countries are increasing nowadays?
Well, we see, as I said earlier, these conflicts are continuing, they're increasing. You have to see what is the basis, and on what basis can you find solutions. And I'm very old-fashioned, and I was very happy to hear that the Kazakh president today in his speech also is very old-fashioned. He pointed to the UN Charter.
Yeah.
He pointed to what we have created after the Second World War.
What are your assumptions on how these situations and conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine can evolve right now?
Well, again, also on the Middle East, on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, please respect international law. What we see right now happening in Gaza is a violation of international humanitarian law, and this has to stop. This is the only way forward. We have to insist on the rule of law and make those who violate it, convince them that is the only way out. So, and sometimes we have to increase the pressure on these guys.
Let's imagine if you would be a chairman of Munich conference again for 2026.
Yeah.
What will be your top agenda questions that you're going to discuss?
It's a hypothetical question. I'm no longer the chairman.
Yeah,
I watch that in interest. I had a policy, and which I think needs to be continued, a policy of reaching out to the global south, because the big questions we have. You listen to Ban Ki-moon speaking about, the climate change. We need global challenges. Number two, I had on all of my podium, I had gender balance. I had 50% women, and you listen to what the president of North Macedonia said today. This is very important. And then I also try to lower the age average. You have younger people participating. That was very important.
Yeah, now we can see that transatlantic relations are actually changing under the presidency of Donald Trump. How do you think the policy of current American administration can change this, whole game in the politics?
Yes, we see this. We see this erratic policy. We see the disrespect for international law. When the American president says, well, he wants to take Canada, Panama Canal, Greenland, and if they don't like, we take it by force. This is a violation of Article 2 of the Charter of the United Nations, and we have to insist on it, and we have to resist it, and try also a country like the United States, try to convince them that even for a big country like that, as for everyone, to respect international law in the end is the best. On trade, we see how tariffs are everything, and I'm an economist. I learned early on, the best for everybody is when you have free trade.
Right.
And by increasing tariffs, by increasing all the possibilities for free trade, you punish, of course, those who export to your country, but you punish your all consumers. Right. Or see what is now being done on the freedom of expression, what is done also on with regard to the universities.
Right.
This is what benefits the world. I studied in England, in the US, and studied in France. I got my degree in Switzerland. I benefited from this, and I think for everybody, this is what European Union was built on, the Erasmus program, allowing everybody, and I hope Kazakhstan, Central Asian countries will come closer, benefit from that. This opens your minds, this gives you new opportunities. Everybody strives from this, And to narrow this now to closed doors, this is not good even for a country like the United States.
Well, let's hope that there will be peace in the coming years. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be in Astana.
One of the distinguished guests at the Astana International Forum was Ban Ki-moon, chair of the Global Green Growth Institute and the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations. On the forum's opening day, President Tokayev, himself a former UN official, met with his longtime colleague. The head of state thanked Ban Ki-moon for his expert support in developing Kazakhstan's carbon neutrality strategy and for his involvement in the environmental restoration of the Aral Sea. In an exclusive interview with Silkway, the former UN Secretary-General spoke about Kazakhstan's role in addressing global challenges and stressed the importance of international cooperation. Please take a look at the fragment of the interview.
There are a lot of fast developing countries too, and there are a lot of resources, natural resources, and human power, manpower. I really count on
And to make a case.
Leadership of Kazakhstan, where very important international conferences now taking place. So I urge, first of all, political leaders, they really have a longer-term vision, global vision, rather than shorter vision focusing on their own country. There is no such country who can live alone. Therefore, we have to really address with the full power, with the global vision and global unity. Kazakhstan is one of the very influential countries in not only in Central Asia, but also in the Asian continent. Therefore, I sincerely hope that under the leadership of President Tokayev, he can really discuss this matter visionally and also globally.
To see more of exclusive footage and interviews from the sidelines of the Astana International Forum and even more, don't miss the new episode of the Reporter with President special project only on Silkway. Let's move on. Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, has arrived in Kazakhstan for her first official visit. On Thursday, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev personally welcomed the high-ranking guest at the capital's airport. Meloni's trip had previously been postponed due to the passing of the Pope Francis. This time, the visit coincides with a major diplomatic event, the inaugural Central Asia-Italy Summit, bringing together leaders from across the region. What did President Tokayev and Prime Minister Meloni discuss, and what agreements were reached? Find out in our next report. This is the third meeting between President Tokayev and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. However, Meloni called this first official visit a historic moment in Kazakhstan-Italy relations. The visit began with her participation in the Astana International Forum, where the Italian Prime Minister expressed her commitment to strengthening the growing partnership through concrete actions.
A visit that I do not consider just protocol, but of substance. We intend to seal the friendship that unites our nations with concrete facts by enhancing our strategic collaboration on many crucial fields. And this visit also marks a historic moment in our relations, the first summit between Italy and the 5 Central Asian nations. I treasure this event.
Speaking at the forum's plenary session, Giorgia Meloni emphasized the strategic importance of the region, stating that Central Asia represents one of the pivots around which the fate of the world revolves. She noted that the region is not only a bridge between Europe and Asia, but also a crossroads between conflicts, which is why the world now needs strong connections more than ever. Ways to further strengthen cooperation between Italy and Kazakhstan were discussed later during high-level talks at the Akorda Presidential Palace. Following the official welcoming ceremony, President Tokayev and Prime Minister Meloni held bilateral talks. The head of state emphasized that Italy is already among Kazakhstan's top 3 trading partners. Last year alone, bilateral trade grew by 24%, reaching nearly $20 billion. He stressed the importance of maintaining this strong momentum. In response, Giorgia Meloni thanked President Tokayev for the invitation and the opportunity to speak at the Astana International Forum, noting that the platform is gaining growing international significance. She reaffirmed Italy's commitment to strengthening its strategic partnership with Kazakhstan. The talks continued in an extended format with broader delegations from both sides.
We appreciate the intention and commitment of the Italian government led by you. Have a closer relationship with Kazakhstan, not only in trade, investment area, but also with regard to links and cooperation between both parliaments. We also very much appreciate our exchanges in the humanitarian area. Your visit is very much important in terms of giving us very powerful impetus for further development of our cooperation.
In turn, Giorgia Meloni noted that the level of cooperation between the two countries fully reflects the spirit of a strategic partnership. Italy recognized the importance of Kazakhstan and the Central Asian region and is therefore committed to deepening its cooperation.
I want to tell you that I think you are one of the most pragmatic leaders I've met, and that it's very useful to talk with somebody that really understands how complex things are in these difficult times. But in these difficult times, there are some good news, and one of those good news is the extraordinary relation between Italy and Kazakhstan.
Political and economic ties between Kazakhstan and Italy rest on a strong foundation. As early as 2009, the two countries signed an interstate agreement on strategic partnership. Following the latest round of talks, President Tokayev and Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni adopted a joint statement on expanding the strategic partnership. In addition, 8 agreements were signed by members of both delegations. Among them, a key deal with Mairie Technomont to open a regional engineering hub focused on the oil and gas sector. Mairie Technomont is one of the world's leading engineering companies in the oil and gas industry. It's currently working on a polyethylene production project in Kazakhstan. This cooperation has made it possible to establish a regional hub that will serve Central Asia and the Caucasus. Kazakh engineers will be trained at the hub and later work on domestic oil and gas projects. Over the past 20 years, Italy has invested up to $7.6 billion in Kazakhstan's economy. Nearly 300 Italian companies are currently operating successfully in the country. The guiding idea behind recent years of cooperation is clear. Kazakhstan no longer intends to serve merely as a raw material base for European countries. As the outcomes of these visits show, both nations are ready to move toward a fundamentally new level of partnership. Dauren Sagulov, New Time. The first Central Asia-Italy summit was held in Astana. The high-level meeting brought together the heads of states from across the region, with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in attendance. Opening the summit, President Tokayev expressed his gratitude for the initiative to convene the forum and underscored the importance of strengthening strategic partnership between the participating countries. In his remarks, President Tokayev outlined key areas for cooperation, with trade as a top priority. He announced that Kazakhstan is ready to increase non-resource exports to Italy across more than 100 product categories, worth approximately $1 billion. President Tokayev also suggested establishing a regional research center in Kazakhstan, focused on rare earth metals. Turning to transport infrastructure, he described the development of the Trans-Caspian route as a modern continuation of the ancient Silk Road. Leaders of all 5 Central Asian nations, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, took part in the summit. At the conclusion, the participating countries adopted a joint declaration on cooperation between Central Asia and Italy. Kazakhstan plans to ship 1.7 million tons of oil through the Aktau-Baku-Ceyhan corridor next year. This marks a major step in the country's efforts to diversify export routes and reduce dependency on traditional pipelines. What does it mean for Kazakhstan's energy strategy and regional partnerships? Our political expert Ozhech Gribayev will tell you more about this and other key developments across our region in a weekly segment Central Asia in Focus.
A meeting between Askat Hasenov, the head of Kazmunaygas, and Ravshan Najaf, the president of Azerbaijani Sokar, took place in Astana. The parties discussed prospects for expanding cooperation and confirmed the successful progress of transporting Kazakh oil through the Aktau-Baku-Ceyhan corridor. Kazmunaygas reported that from January to April 2025, the total volume of oil shipments amounted to 489,000 tons. The annual plan for 2025 is set at 1.7 million tons. Last year, the volume of Kazakh oil transit along this route, Aktau-Baku-Ceyhan, under the agreement with Sokar, was increased by 27%, reaching 1.4 million tons. As part of efforts to diversify export routes, Kazakhstan began supplying oil via Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline in 2023. An agreement was signed to transport 1.5 million tons of Kazakh oil annually through this pipeline. The International Conference Sustainable Development Joint Steps Towards Decarbonization was held in Astana this week. During the event, Kazmunaygas announced that its activities will focus on implementing specific energy efficiency and energy-saving measures across its subsidiaries and affiliates. In particular, more than 500,000 tons of fuel and energy resources are expected to be saved by 2031 through the implementation of over than 300 initiatives. The Kazakh company also announced plans to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 15% by 2031 and by 64% by 2060. Following the conference, Kazmunaygas, Sokar, Tatneft and Uzbekneftgaz signed a cooperation agreement on decarbonization and sustainable initiatives. The document envisions the exchange of experience in environmentally safe technologies and the implementation of green products, which will help companies to promote climate initiatives on the global energy markets. Also, Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan have agreed to exchange information regarding the financial markets. The document was signed between the Agency for Regulation and Development of the Financial Market of Kazakhstan and the Central Bank of Azerbaijan during the first Council of Central Banks of the Organization of Turkic States. Under the memorandum, the parties will exchange information on the status and development experience of their national financial markets, key standards and regulatory and supervisory requirements. Financial regulations will also share best practices in improving legislation and regulatory frameworks, including joint efforts to enhance monitoring and supervision mechanisms for market participants. The meeting was attended by the heads of central banks from Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and Turkey, as well as a representative from Central Bank of Hungary as an observer. The second meeting of the Council is scheduled to be held in Azerbaijan in next year. This week, the Central Asia-China Media Forum opened in Astana. The event brought together around 140 participants, including politicians, journalists, and heads of media organizations and news agencies from Kazakhstan, China, and other Central Asian countries. Together, they share a common goal, promoting the modern Silk Road through the Belt and Road Initiative in partnership with the media. The forum was co-organized by People's Daily and one of China's leading newspapers and the TV and radio complex of the President of Kazakhstan. The opening ceremony featured a congratulatory letter from Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, who emphasized the growing role of media as a vital bridge between cultures and countries. In this context, he highlighted the importance of Chinese President Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative. As a reminder, the second Central Asia-China Summit will take place in Astana this June.
President Tokayev sent a special congratulatory letter to the forum, underscoring the importance Kazakhstan places on this event. It's a strong signal of the country's commitment to deepening media exchange and strengthening cooperation between Chinese and Central Asian media outlets. We sincerely thank President Tokayev for his support.
The Central Asia-China Media Forum is a significant occasion that offers a unique platform for media from our countries to connect. We are close neighbors and must strive for deeper mutual understanding, especially as our economic partnership continues to grow. Today we successfully launched a joint press tour giving journalists from China and Central Asia the opportunity to witness real examples of our cooperation in Kazakhstan, from industrial projects to tourism development. This will help audiences and readers gain a clearer picture of our partnership and its future potential. We are also deeply honored by the congratulatory message from the President of Kazakhstan. It's a gesture that means a great deal to us.
Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan organized a meeting of foreign ministries. During consultations, the sides addressed issues related to the protection of citizens' rights and interests, rules of movement, and residence procedures. They discussed the current state and prospects for developing bilateral relations, consular matters, and the legal protection of their citizens. The diplomats emphasized their readiness to further expand cooperation and continue constructive dialogue between two countries. Earlier, it was reported that during the next session of the lower house of the Tajik parliament, the agreement between Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan on the junction point of the three states' borders will be ratified.
The West must now learn from the East, just as the East once learned from the West. That's the message from one of the world's most prominent geopolitical thinkers, Kishore Mahbubani, former president of the UN Security Council and Singapore's longtime ambassador to the United Nations. In an exclusive conversation with New Time reporter Baljan Samigulina, Kishore Mahbubani warns that the US foreign policy is becoming more unpredictable and that this shift could pose serious risks to global stability. And as Washington turns inward, Asia is stepping forward with growing confidence and clarity of purpose. So, what does this shift mean for the global order? Is Asia now shaping the rules of the future? To find out Professor Mahbubani's ideas on these points, please watch the fragment of the interview right now.
Mr. Mahbubani, thank you very much for joining us. Let me start from this point. You've noted that West must learn from the East as East was learned from the West. And now we can see that Asia is showing more confidence, while Europe and West in general are facing some instability. Would you say that world history is now taking another direction?
World history is definitely taking another direction. We are seeing the end of the era of Western domination of world history, but that's not the end of the West. The West will still remain very strong, but the capacity of the West to dominate the world has diminished and will continue to diminish, and you'll see the return of Asia.
Is Asia the one now who is writing actually new rules of a global order?
Well, the good news is that the return or rise of East Asia is not going to destabilize the world. I think certainly the Asian countries don't want to overturn the current world order because most East Asian countries, especially China, have been beneficiaries of the 1945 rules-based order that was set up by the West at the end of World War II.
Do you think in the next decade we can see that new institutions and new orders will be now more East-oriented? As now you have mentioned, now up to now it was West-oriented, and now it can be rewritten.
I don't think you will have new institutions. I think the UN family of institutions will remain, the IMF and World Bank will remain, but the control of these institutions can no longer be dominated by the West. So, you know, for example, it says in the constitution of the IMF that the IMF must be situated in the capital of the largest economy in the world. Now, when the United States put that rule in 1945, it thought United States would be number one forever. But at some point in time, 10 years, 15 years, when China becomes number one, IMF will have to move from Washington, D.C. to China. So that's how the world will change.
You touched on U.S., and I've seen your citation that you surprisingly view how United States interacts with the outer world. How do you assess right now the attempts of current American administration to interact with other countries?
Well, I think President Donald Trump, as you know, is very different from his predecessors. Very different. Because, you know, traditionally, American presidents, like John F. Kennedy, said America will pay any price, bear any burden to fight for freedom around the world, you know. I mean, he was, President John F. Kennedy said, the American people are ready to make sacrifices to make the world a better place. But President Trump's goal is not to make the world a better place. His goal is MAGA, make America great again. And so his view is that his job is only to take care of America. And so he's prepared to pressure other countries if he has to. And he has basically created a whole new America, a different America from the one that we used to know. And now we have to live with this new America because we do not choose the US president. The American people choose the US president, and we have to learn to live with him.
To what extent it is risky?
Well, certainly it is risky, but at the end of the day, I think President Trump also can accept win-win agreements. So I was pleasantly surprised when he reached a ceasefire with China in the trade war so quickly. I didn't expect it so quickly. I thought it would be a long, drawn-out war. But I think President Trump could see that the bond markets were troubled, that the stock markets were troubled, and he decided, okay, maybe it's in his interest to try and achieve a ceasefire and a truce with China. And I think that's going to help the world.
In terms of global security, again, now we can see the trend of increasing armament. So what threats does it impose so far?
Well, actually, one of the paradoxes is that somebody said that to have peace, prepare for war. So sometimes when countries buy more arms, it doesn't mean that they'll go to war. It means that they are trying to protect themselves from the eventuality of war. And in some ways, that helps to preserve the peace. As you know, one reason why we have not had a nuclear war since nuclear weapons were invented in the 1940s is because of mutual assured destruction. And so sometimes having weapons can prevent war too.
So now we can see the conflicts actually almost in all the continents. How do you think, can it evolve into a bigger one, a huge conflict, global conflict in the next decade?
I'm actually quite optimistic that the current conflicts that we have will not spread and become bigger. So I don't think that the Ukraine conflict will become bigger, that at some point in time they'll have to compromise and reach a deal that respects the security interests of, of course, the people of Ukraine, the people of Russia, and the people of Europe. You can achieve a compromise.
What about the situation in the Middle East? Yeah.
Well, I think I'm glad you asked me about the situation in the Middle East. I don't think it's going to spread to other countries. Remember in the 50 years ago when you had a conflict in the Middle East, Egypt would be fighting a war with Israel and Jordan would be fighting a war with Israel. And I don't see that happening now because Israel has now achieved overwhelming military domination of its neighborhood, which is why as a friend of Israel, I believe that now that Israel is so strong and powerful, this is the time for Israel to make peace with its neighbors. And President Trump is right in trying to reinvigorate the Abraham Accords and try to achieve a normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. But Israel, in turn, must give the Palestinians a state of their own. This is the best time for Israel to try and achieve a two-state solution. And it'd be very sad if Israel, a former Israeli foreign minister used to say that the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Today, Israel is maybe missing an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Worldwide known Kazakh singer Dimash Kudaibergen has announced a major solo concert set to take place this October at the world-famous Madison Square Garden in New York. The news came during a special fan event in Almaty, where around 10,000 fans from 45 countries gathered to celebrate the artist's birthday and meet him in person. At a heartfelt gathering, Dimash shared his upcoming plans and took time to answer questions from admirers who traveled from across Kazakhstan, as well as from Spain, the United States, Russia, Colombia, Chile, Turkey, and beyond.
I think not only from his extraordinary voice, at the same time his unique style, his commitment to culture, his character, and his belonging to the Turkish world, it affects me so much. I connected him deeply from my country and me also. He embraces his culture, Kazakh culture and Turkish world so much, and it is so valuable for me. That's why we support him and we love him so much.
And that's it for today. All the main news about Kazakhstan and Central Asia you can find here. More special projects about our country you can also watch on Silkway TV channel. So stay tuned and see you next week.